My dog scared off 4 men on our walk by u/consideration cute 607. I'm a 30-year-old female and I have a 31-kilogram German Shepherd, which is about 10 months. She's an absolute nightmare to walk during the day as she hates other dogs, so I walk her anytime between 8 p.m. and 10 p.m. She used to hate people, but I've managed to train it out of her 3 months back, and she will generally ignore people these days as long as they wait to be allowed forward with a handshake from me. We live in a small village in the middle of nowhere, and our estate is on the edge of this village. Our usual route is up and out of the estate onto the main road, and then we follow that through the village and back. Usually, it takes about 30 to 45 minutes, depending if she's stopping to sniff every blade of grass. A couple of weeks ago, we went out for her walk a bit later than usual, so it's pitch black. We got onto the main road, and she sits whilst I check before we cross. I notice headlights in the distance leading out of the village. The car was parked, which was strange as there's nothing up there but fields and cattle. Callie had also clocked it. We crossed the road, but Callie was leaning around me to keep her eyes on it. I will mention that she doesn't like cars either, so I thought she was just prepping herself to chase it. We walked in the opposite direction, and she kept turning around to look at it every 2 minutes. But I then noticed that it had slowly driven up and was crawling behind us. I stopped to look, thinking that they might be lost and needing directions. This is when I noticed 4 men in the car staring at me and my dog. Enter creepy chills. The car sped up a little and then pulled to our side of the road and parked. Callie and I stopped, and I was about to cross onto the other side of the road when all 4 men got out of the car and looked at us. Callie lost her mind. She lunged as far as the lead would allow, growling, snarling, and barking. 2 men closest to us immediately got back in the car, and the other 2 paused until Callie started pulling on the lead, trying to get at them. One shakes his head and gets back in the car, and the other shortly follows, and the car speeds off. As soon as they're gone, Callie sits and looks up at me, tongue out and everything, like she hadn't just been rabid a moment earlier. Well, she got extra fish treats that night. I have no idea what might have happened had Callie not been the way she is, and I still walk her at night, safe in the knowledge that I have a 68-pound death machine with me. Creepy encounter while walking my dog by u/electronic panda 6780. Often, I enjoy walking my dog at nighttime. This is due to the fact that my dog is harder to walk when people are around with their own dogs. So, we tend to walk around parks in the area when they've become somewhat secluded. I'm not a very big guy. I'm just 5'10" and very lanky, so I wouldn't call myself an intimidating figure. However, my 120-pound black boxer/lab named Loki could be somewhat considered threatening to most from what I hear. I figured his size would be used as a deterrent for anyone looking to cause nightly troubles. Well, I was dead wrong. On one specific night in the fall of 2016, I could recall of an encounter that reminds me of why I am so reluctant to walk around once daylight falls. This specific park is one that I have been to a couple times, and from what I remember, this park is usually secluded around 6:30 p.m. and later. Aside from a couple joggers or very few other dog walkers, not many people walk the same path that I take. I also like to put on my headphones and listen to music while I walk. But on this specific night, I chose not to wear them since my phone was on low battery and I wanted to preserve it as long as I could. Anyway, the walk was going as usual. Loki did his business and we continued on our usual path. About midway on our walk, I realized that it had started to get really dark. Since he was done with his business, I decided to cut the walk somewhat short and we took a shortcut that kind of led us off the path. This path had a bunch of trees surrounding the area and there were still leaves on the branches. With that being said, I felt a weird feeling as if I was being watched. I have pretty bad anxiety sometimes, but since I knew the town was safe, I knew that nothing was going to happen. But still, I could not for the life of me shake off the feeling of being watched. I peered back to see if anyone had been following me out of anxiety, and every single time, no one was there. In fact, no one was anywhere. This whole shortcut was essentially secluded. Suddenly, Loki stopped walking and also looked back. I told him, "Loki, come on boy, we've gotta go." One thing I failed to mention was that Loki is a big coward. I noticed his tail was tucked between his legs, which is a telltale sign that a dog is afraid. I was also curious and a bit nervous, but I surely did not want to find out what he heard or noticed. I just wanted to get out ASAP. I pulled a little and he began to walk, but every now and then, I'd see him peer back. After maybe a minute or so of walking, he stopped again and this time, he began to growl. Despite being a coward, Loki is a bark but no bite kind of dog. So I took this chance to see exactly what he was growling at. It was quite dark, so I could not see well. So I used my phone's flashlight to see what's up. Trees, just trees, and what he heard was probably some kind of small animal. Once again, I turned around and kept walking. He continued to peer back once in a while still, but this time, I noticed it was a lot more frequent. I just said to myself, just squirrels or maybe a bird, and I ignored it. Then I heard what appeared to be actual footsteps and branches breaking. This is absolutely no way a small animal could have produced a sound like that. There is absolutely no way a small animal could have produced a sound like that. Loki turned around quick, and still with his tail tucked, he began to growl and bark at a figure that I could only describe as a man in his early 50s, possibly late 40s, appear from out of the woods. He was dressed in dirty clothing, his hair was long and graying, he had one hand in his pocket, and he said to me, "Nice dog you have there, kid. What breed is he?" "He's a boxer/lab," I replied. "Oh, I love dogs. Mind if I pet him?" He wondered. The man got closer and emerged from the trees. As he got closer, I realized that he was quite tall and a bit burly. Loki instantly got bad vibes. He ran behind me and started to bark at him. Actually, I do kinda mind. My dog here doesn't like strangers. Sorry, but it's probably not best if you pet him, I quickly stated. It's okay, really. He seems like a friendly guy. Just a little pet wouldn't harm him, the man retorted as he got closer. I felt extremely uncomfortable as he appeared to get closer and closer. I don't know why this guy couldn't take no for an answer. I mean, I usually don't allow people to pet Loki unless he comes up to them first. If he's scared of you, then I usually do not want to freak him out by letting him be pet by a stranger. This is especially the case when said stranger came from the woods behind a few trees. I'm really sorry, man. I'm scared he'd bite you or something, I told him as I began to walk away. Like I said before, I wasn't trying to be judgmental or anything, but the dude came from the woods and was possibly the one trailing us from before. I don't know why you won't just let me introduce myself to him, the guy replied angrily. This time, I began to speed walk. I was very uncomfortable and my flight or fight instincts began to take over. He followed us and kept muttering curses to himself. I don't know if this man was under the influence of something, but he did not let up. I won't lie, I started to get a little angry. Why can't a guy just take no for an answer? He began to match my speed, almost as if he was trying to catch up to us. Loki and I both took this as an answer to start sprinting a bit. I don't remember much of the running. It was all a blur to me. But I do remember the spine-tingling feeling of hearing his footsteps rapidly increasing behind me. For a man of his stature, he was quite fast. I also realized that his intentions may not have just been to pet my dog. No one reasonable would go that far just to pet a dog that clearly wanted nothing to do with him. I looked behind me, and he was in pursuit. Maybe about 10 feet behind me, he was chasing us. I will never forget the look in his eyes. I never had anyone look at me like that. A look of killer intent. And all for what? Just because he couldn't pet my dog? My instincts told me that he definitely had sinister intent behind that. Finally, the path led to the park exit and into the busier streets. I lived about 10 minutes away from the park, and I made sure no one was following me, and I even made sure to walk on the populated streets. And after what seemed like an eternity, we got home, but I knew for a fact that I was not going to get a minute of sleep. From my window in the porch, I watched all night with Loki, just to see if anyone had followed us home. I also made a police report with my parents. After all, this guy seemed to have been quite suspicious, and who knows what his true intentions were. Had his target been someone who couldn't protect themselves or run away, what would he have done? I also often ask myself, what if I had worn my headphones and the sound of the music drowned the footsteps behind me? Ever since, I haven't walked Loki in that park. I've also made it a habit of mine to walk on livelier streets at night. If I could give anyone one piece of advice, even if you live in a relatively safe town, do not ever let your guard down. You never know what kind of person might be lurking in the shadows. Two nights ago, I was awoken by my dog between 11 and 3 a.m. at most. He kept near me when I got up and made a low aggressive growl facing out of my room but kept close to me. He has never done this before, and I've worked with canines for years, and this gave me a gut feeling. And then I heard it. Someone talking. In my yard, no more than 20 feet by the sound. Low mumbling or bad whispering, and I was blaring Return of the King. I need to add that I have childlike hearing at my age for context. If you speak in a one-floor home with 2 doors closed at a whisper, I can make words out. He went quiet when I opened the drawer too loud to grab my hidden .380 chambered around and noticed a shadow passing by light outside the blurred window. Home was clear, all doors locked, nothing odd, but my dog peeled out. I held my flashlight in one hand, went his way and called him to the other side. He was gone. I guess they knew I was home and ran on foot. I went around but thought, okay, I'm good. Well, Florida continues to be Florida. The third night, my dog does this again in the same frame, waking me up, and at this rate, I just got the 12 gauge. My dog was acting far more protective, or gave me the dog body language for major threat, need the pack, can't handle alone. I froze for a moment. 2 people now. Fuck, this is not good. They must be intent to violently take whatever they could be after. It was one new guy and guy number 1. I can't risk getting a look. At this rate, they mean business, and I had to be armed to scope out a place with a ring. 60 pounds of muscle of a dog, and my grown ass with a lifetime of handling guns. In the yard around 2:30 a.m. for a second night, they knew I and my dog were home, but clearly had a goal. This time, voices were behind the home. My dog then pulled a fucking Leroy Jenkins. He gave off the most aggressive, loud bark that I have ever seen any dog do, and ran to the wall. I ran to his side and yelled, "Fuck them up, they're dead men." Now shit's clicking for me. This was planned and professionally. I checked every inch of the property with a shotgun, and my dog was worked up and spooked, but calming. I'm buying him steak for this one, and definitely a good one. I went inside and I literally kept that gun on me, chambered, and in reach of my bed. I barely slept. On the 4th day, I did a bit of looking around for misplaced or slightly moved objects or scratched out blocks. Yep, one trash can by the gate was rotated 180 degrees, with the handle facing me, not the wall as it's always been placed. Few crushed dead twigs as I went back, and the head chair was turned and moved to the right. A clearly odd thing, as that table set is symmetrical, so it's glaringly obviously out of place if you live there. The ring and my neighbors so far show nothing, but I knew these guys had to have known he left. Knew his son lives there, and the dog would eat them up and is huge, and that I had a gun, and I even announced that I was armed. Yet, came back with a backup. Then the backup dude moved shit that I didn't know, till my Marine buddy told me to check if so much as a rock was out of place. It's a way to gauge the person's awareness or presence, I guess. But whatever your goal was, let's not meet. I knew they weren't who they said they were. Always trust your gut. By U/K Faith Ford. I, a 22-year-old female, live in a brand new apartment complex on a nice side of town. My city is pretty safe in general, and this is the first time that I've lived alone. So, even though it's a safe area, I took some precautions which included installing a Ring video doorbell. I have honestly never needed it in the 6 months that I've lived here, as no unexpected visitor has ever come by. Well, until last night. I was sitting at home alone with my dog working on some homework. It was nearly 8 p.m. and starting to get dark outside. At night, I have my Ring set up to alert me when a person is detected outside my door. I receive a notification of motion at my door, but I didn't think much of it. At 8 p.m., people are still walking down the hall and up the stairs and etc. About 30 seconds later, I receive several loud knocks on my door and my Ring is pushed rapidly 3 times. At this point, I'm spooked and my dog is going nuts. I open up the app to see 2 men standing outside my door. I debated internally on if I should open it or not, but then decided since it wasn't dark yet and my neighbors were home that it would be safe to do so. I slowly opened the door, just enough to put my head out. The man nearest to me says that they're with a wreath committee and complimented my wreath. He then went on to say that he was with an internet company and he and his partner were here to offer me a deal. Now, my apartment has a very strict no-tolerance policy for solicitation of any kind. We are told to immediately report that kind of activity, and there are signs posted all around stating that solicitation is prohibited by law here. I told the men that I am happy with my current service and I was not interested in switching. The man who spoke first continued to speak about the great deal they were offering, but I continued to decline. He kept saying that he lived really close to here and he'd be happy to personally set up the service. He even offered to come inside and help me get started immediately. I declined his offer once more, and he reiterated that if I changed my mind, and just to give him a call because he could be here in 5 minutes to help me out. He handed me a business card, and I tried to end the conversation again. He then tells me that he just can't walk away knowing that I could get such a good deal, and I'm saying no to it. At that point, my instincts were telling me that something was off. I decided to take a more aggressive approach, and I asked him if he was aware that my apartment has a strict no solicitation policy. He said he was aware, but that he cleared it with management. My apartment has a very small management team, and I know every single one of them. I asked who he cleared it with, and he said that he cleared it with the guys on the golf cart, Mike and Will, and that Mike was a great guy. Now, I knew it was all a lie. Our management team is only women here. There is nobody by the name of Mike or Will. In fact, only one man works here, and his name is Joe. I say, "Thanks, I'm not interested," and close the door and lock it loudly. I took closer at the business card he handed me. It had a logo and a name he gave me, but the email was not a company email. It was a Yahoo account. The phone number also did not appear when I searched it up for the company. I decided to post about my encounters in the residents-only Facebook page, and a few other women commented that they had similar interactions tonight, but that they were given different names. The strange thing was, none of the men or couples were approached. It was only women they spoke with. They talked to my upstairs neighbor and my neighbor across the hall, which were both girls, and didn't speak to either of the men that lived on the same floor as me. Everyone was given different names, and everyone was offered vastly different deals. Two women were told that they did not have any business cards to hand down. I thought it might be worth Googling this guy's name to see if anything popped up. And sure enough, the second result was a report of an offender registry. Turns out the man who spoke at my door has 5 felonies and have served several years in jail for various charges, including trafficking a controlled substance, theft by deception, and possession of stolen property. I knew it was him because there was a photo attached to the report, and he is currently on parole until November. I'm not sure if I'm overthinking the situation because this is my first time experiencing something like this, but I know it didn't feel right. Maybe I'm just being dramatic or paranoid, but the entire thing feels more than a little bit off. I'm not sure if they were just scammers or if they were staking out places to rob, or maybe worse, and I reported it to my property manager who is investigating it today. But I am just a bit uneasy about the whole thing. If they return, I'll be calling the police for sure. As of the time of me writing this, nothing else suspicious has happened, and I am safe at the moment. I will continue to stay vigilant. So guys, please, be safe out there. My dog rescued me from a creep. Hey, so I have a story. I used to live in a fairly rough area where break-ins and bashings were pretty common. My house was pretty secure most of the time, but we've had someone try to get in and then give up. I live there with my boyfriend and our dog Angus. Angus normally is a total love bug and is friendly and affectionate. He is a mutt, but we have guessed that there is some German Shepherd and something else in there as well. As I walked down the alleyway to get home, I noticed that I didn't have my keys with me and I would need to jump the back fence. I wasn't too worried about it. I'd call out to Angus so he wouldn't bite me and things would be good. But I heard someone call out to me in the alleyway and I ignored it. I called out to Angus and threw my bag over the fence before climbing it up myself. Angus barked happily and wagged his tail before demanding pats. I admit that my focus was on my excitable and happy dog. But then I heard a sound, and I saw a man leaping over the fence. He shouted something at me aggressively, and I saw that he had a knife in his hand. I started to back up and felt pretty vulnerable outside. My boyfriend wouldn't be home for a couple of hours. But Angus wasted no time. He growled and ran over to him barking. I was worried for him and I tried to call him back. And the man screamed for Angus to get away, but it only encouraged him. The last thing that I remember was him leaping over the fence while Angus was biting him on the ass. It was scary at that time, but definitely hilarious whenever I think about it now. Good boy, Angus. Please, I hope I'm being dramatic. By you/Radiant Weekend. I usually walk my dog around midnight or midnight. I like the fact that I'm alone and that I am allowed to take my mask off. Sometimes my mother comes with me, and sometimes my mother goes alone, or sometimes I go alone. However, it's just me most of the time. If a car drives by me, I just make sure they don't stop, and that's it. Not gonna lie, I have had scares, but it was mostly because it's dark and I am a woman. But I tell myself to calm down, not everyone is bad, or why would they do it to me, right? Well, today, I walked my dog alone, and when I was walking the way back to my house, my dog stopped, and I thought she wanted to do something. A car drove by, and even though there was nothing especially weird about that car, I just kept an eye on it. The road is one way, and yes, it had to pass where I live, but it stopped right in front of the portal. I got a weird sensation in my stomach, and I decided not to walk on the sidewalk closest to where they were parked. I walked the opposite direction from where they were, but my dog wanted to go back home, so we turned around. Suddenly, my mom is calling me and asking where I was. She was in the other area I was in, but on the other sidewalk. She crossed the road and I saw that the car was no longer in front of my house, which for some reason didn't sit well with me. Then I calmed down because there was a similar car parked a bit behind where I had seen the other. But then my mom told me that a car that was parked in front of her house with two men inside had started driving really slowly when she came out. And the driver, looking directly at her, said, "Oh, there goes the bodyguard," and then drove away. Now, I try to not get scared because at first, I understood they were talking with each other, and my mom just heard a part of their conversation, and she actually tends to overthink a lot. But then I realized that the man was looking at her, and the fact that they drove away with no reason. Maybe I'm being dramatic and just getting crazy over nothing, but he looked at my mom while saying that, and I can't stop thinking that if they knew who my mom was and why she was on the street at that time, that means that they know me. And I can only think of two situations. First, someone who lives closer, knows us, and has seen our late walking routine. And the second, someone who has been driving around here enough times to know who we are and our late walking routine. Either situation, I don't like them one bit. I just want to walk alone with my dog with no problems. The other weird thing that happened is that a few minutes after they left, a neighbor walked out and said hi to my mom and I. We said hi back, and he said bye with my name, louder than his first hi. Now, I know I am overthinking this, but I see no reason to say hi to both of us and then bye only to me. And this is a guy who's been asking me out since 2015 and always gotten a no in response. But he never stopped. This past year, he started asking for hugs and even kisses. Lucky me that I have a global situation on my part, and I used it as an excuse along with saying no. At first, I didn't mind him asking me out, but I've become uncomfortable with the fact that he doesn't take no for an answer and just keeps asking and asking. Is he thinking that being that persistent is gonna get him somewhere? What really made me get wary of him is that the last time that I said no, I could see anger in his face. I was inside a lift and he took a few seconds to move. He suddenly smiled and took a step back, and I was left asking myself, what? I've known this guy for 20 years and he never looked at me that way. Also, add that I live in the worst part of my city, but in 20 years of living here, I'm used to see neighbors selling drugs, people coming to buy them, shouting at 5 a.m. But I've never felt scared till recently with this neighbor, and tonight, with whatever was that with the two men in the car. I still don't understand why he was looking at my mom while saying those things. I'm trying to tell myself that I'm exaggerating here, but I can't shake the odd feeling. A part of me wants to keep walking alone at midnight, just to see if it happens again, but then, I don't want to challenge my luck here. Weird Dog Walking Story by U/, Basic Accountant 369. This happened about 3 years ago when I was out walking my dog, and has always just bugged me as a bit weird. To make the story easier, I'm going to briefly describe my dog and the place where we live in. Our dog was a Staffy Pit Bull Cross. We rescued him from a dog shelter when he was about 8, and by this time, he already had pretty bad arthritis in his back hips and was on daily tablets for this. He also suffered from really bad anxiety caused by being abandoned by his previous owners and being in the dog shelter for such a long period of time. He was terrified of cats, and other dogs made him nervous. If he saw another dog, he would freeze, tail between his legs, silent and just staring. If the dog came over, he'd be ready to fight. One time I was walking with him in the evening, and 4 cats came out of nowhere and were hissing at him and chasing him, almost like they could smell his fear. But with people, he was the biggest sweetheart. My son was 3 when we got him, and that little lad could do no wrong in the dog's eyes. If my son was lying in his bed, he'd lie on the floor next to him. If my boy wanted to wrestle, the dog would let it happen. If my son wanted a cuddle, the dog would lie there for an hour. If we had a burglar break-in, my dog would just be happy to meet a new friend. He loved food, cuddles, and lying in the sun on the grass. And we miss him every single day now that he's gone. For where we live in a newly built housing estate on the edge of town in the UK. The site is basically one big circle with one main road going right through the middle. Off of this main road is a lot of side streets. Some are dead ends and some loop back around to the main road or connect to the other roads. There's a few grassy patches for kids and dogs and a load of footpaths and cycle paths. So on the night in question, we went out for a last walk at about 9 p.m. for a wee or a poo before bedtime. It was early spring, so dark and so cold. My street is a dead end, but connects up with other roads via some footpaths. We started walking down some of it and going roughly parallel with the main road. We hadn't made it to any of the grassy areas yet, so it was just parked cars and houses around us. About 5 minutes into the walk, we reach a crossroad. Roughly speaking, turning left would be headed towards the main road and right would take you further away. My dog goes still and quiet, and the tail goes between his legs. He's scared. So I start looking for cats hiding in the dark. I try getting him to move, but he won't. I can't see anything. Then a dog, off leash, no owner in sight, comes strutting up from the right-hand turn. It's a golden retriever. Nothing unusual about it except to see that it was clean. Its coat was clearly white gold and not muddy or wet or anything. It comes closer, right at us, and still no owner in sight. My dog doesn't like other dogs, and this one is off leash with no one in sight, so I want to get away before it kicks off. I get a treat out of my pocket and my dog ignores it, so I get 2 more treats and he reluctantly starts walking to get them. We go left towards the main road, and I'm trying to go quickly to stay ahead, but he keeps stopping to look back. The golden retriever is following us, still trotting at the same pace about 20 meters behind us. We reach the end of the road, and this is a T-junction. We take the left and now we're around the corner. I have a little jog, thinking maybe we can get far enough away that the golden retriever will go elsewhere. Nope. It comes around the corner and keeps following us. My dog really wants to stop, but I keep dragging him after me. At the end of the street, we are on the main road and I turn left. Now, it's about 200 meters back to our house, pretty much just a straight line. The dog reaches the main road and here, it finally stops following us. Where we turned left, it turned right. It trotted across the main road and goes to the other side, where there is a guy who stood waiting. He just stood on the pavement doing nothing. The dog stops next to him, and the man and the dog stare at us as we walk away as quickly as we can. They're still watching up until the point we get far enough away that you can't see them anymore. That's it. Nothing bad happened or anything. I never saw that man or dog again. It was just weird how the dog was so far away, probably 400 meters, but even further down the bends and curves and corners of the road. The man and the dog were basically in completely opposite parts of the estate. Probably, the dog had escaped out of the open door and the man was out looking for him. But the guy wasn't shouting out or even running around. He was, to my eye, literally just waiting. Anyway, what do you think? Just a lost dog and an owner out looking for it? I did consider the golden retriever was a lost animal, and so I should have helped it or grabbed it. But my dog was really anxious of other dogs, and they were both big dogs, so if they started fighting, I don't think I could have broken them apart without one getting hurt. I guess it might have been a dick move, just leaving the golden retriever, but I thought it was better to avoid a confrontation. We always keep our dog on a short lead so we could control him, but dogs off leash were always our biggest fear. Hello everyone, it's your creepy sister here. Thank you so much for watching the video. I really appreciate each and every one of you. But I would also like to thank my amazing patrons, my top tippers, and my dearest channel members. Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it with all of my heart. If you want to support the channel further, you could also choose to become a patron, a tipper, or a channel member. But remember, it's appreciated, but never a requirement. I would also like to announce that we have merch now. The link is in the description of the video, along with all my other social media links, like my Discord server, Twitter, Instagram, and others. You can connect with me and send your stories there. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't yet, and comments are highly appreciated. And remember, your fear feeds me.